This is what they're going to be learning about presentation, and there's two parts to this. First is the presentation that they're going to write and the reason, the reasons behind how they're going to write it. And I'll go through this assuming you know in general what we're talking about. It would be a little bit slower with them. And then the second part is advice that I've put together for them if they're really serious about winning. And all of this stuff is in the packet we put together. But in general, we look at the presentation as a series of you say this, 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 you say this. And it's nice to be creative, it really is. But if you go give a venture capital presentation, they're going to want to see 10 slides, 10 specific slides. They want that information. They don't want one of the things that people worry about, intellectual property. Does this need to open? Okay. Oh, that turned itself off. Okay, well, there we go. And when you're doing an elevator pitch, the purpose of an elevator pitch, as you probably already know, is to get something. Quite often it's the next meeting. In this case, we're pitching it as sort of a very, very miniaturized version of a real pitch, so they're going to ask for what they really need to start their business at the end. So the first thing is, what is the pain, the problem that you're solving? And then the second thing is, how are you going to solve the problem? Then the third thing is, what evidence do you have that this is a problem or that people want this problem solved? The next part is why you have to justify your place in the business, because a lot of times no one's going to steal your idea, but probably 10 other people have it. And if I have money to invest, I can invest it with this person who has a new blackjack game, or this person who has a new blackjack game, or this person has a new blackjack game. I created a blackjack game, by the way. It's being play tested in Oregon. And no casino is ever going to pick it up, but that's okay. But the question would be, why am I important to that process if I was pitching that? Next is the profit part, and the profit part for this type of pitch is a little bit different than you would think. It's not how much money am I going to make. It's I'm going to ask you to invest, so how are you going to get your money back from me? And how much more money are you going to make? And then the last part is, please, that's the ask for the things that we're really going to have. Now you should all, this is in there somewhere in some form, but this is the general form that we give. And we explain what those things are. And then I do a live example. I know Todd is perfectly capable of doing this. I don't know if he will. I know Hunter's perfectly capable. I don't know if they will or not. But what I will do is, like, someone tell me some business idea, just any idea, shout it out.
Mobile dog grooming.
Okay, mobile dog grooming. Okay, so busy people don't have time to go to a groomer, drop their dog off, wait for it to be clean and cut and everything else, or especially they don't have time to sit there. So we solve that problem by coming to your home. Right now I did pain. What's the problem? Now I'm doing the solution. We solve that problem by coming to your home, doing the grooming on site while you're sipping a margarita, watching a football game, whatever. We take care, we pamper your pet, we take really good care of it, and you barely have to lift a finger other than to call up to Cash App. That's all you have to do. Why do we think this will work? Well, you've seen other successful dog grooming businesses out there, and there's even a couple in town that are mobile. So obviously this works. We've talked to a lot of people, and they've said they will pay $75. I made that up. And when you're doing when you're demonstrating this technique live, you'll make this up, and that's okay. But, your students will actually want to go out and get real numbers for these things. But you know, I've talked to 100 people and we figured out that we can do this for about 75 bucks per. And the reason people will pay this is because they value their time more than they value that money. And so we figure we can, you know, I'm important because I know how to organize this in such a way as to be able to generate the most revenue with the least amount of driving. Logistically, I can figure this stuff out. I love pets. I have lots of contacts in the pet industry, which accidentally is true. And so I can get this business off the ground, and I can probably get this business profitable faster than anyone else you know based on the contacts and the people I know in the industry. I think we can do this. We can do a pet in 30 minutes for about 75 bucks. We can do 10 a day. So that's 750 bucks a day per truck, and I can put 4 trucks on the road. So that means we can make about $3,000 a day. Our expenses will be about $1,800 a day, which leaves $1,200 bucks a day for profit. So that's where the money's going to come from to pay back the investors. You're going to get $1,200 bucks. You will be, I am asking you for 3 trucks plus hiring people, I'm asking you for $150,000, for which I'm going to give you 30% of the company. We'll take a year to get started. So after that first year, you will get $400 a day off of your, what did I say, 75,000? Your $75,000 investment, whatever I said. So you'll get 400 bucks a day. And if you look at your annualized rate of return on that, it's going to be really, really good. It's going to be better than you can get at the bank, and you're going to get that forever. So you've just demonstrated to your students that they can write this elevator pitch that quick. Then they get to write that pitch in the class. They get to make all of this stuff up with the understanding that they're going to go out and they're going to verify these things to make sure they're right. And if they're wrong, no difference. It's like me when I was at Ball State. I took a pad out, and I just stood on the corner, and it was like, what's your name?
Don.
Don. And so I'd write Don's name down, somebody else's name, somebody else's name, somebody else's name. And some guy asked, well, what's this list? I said, well, this is a list of people I think I could beat up. The guy said, well, I don't think you can beat me up. Really? Okay, I'll take your name off the list. You just go get the information, and then the information, you change your assumptions. And so they've already got the framework, and they put it in. Now, this is the easy part. This is the part we can do in class. We can get this done. If you go to the last 2 pages of this, you'll see that that's the framework we've got on there. You list the pain, the premise, the proof, the people, the promise, and the ask. And the students will be graded on each of those things individually, okay? So they will understand that if you have a big, gigantic problem, that problem's worth a lot of points, right? So let's say the problem is everyone thinks the environment is the worst thing in the world, so we'll say the environment. There's too much garbage in the ocean. Big problem, right? My feet get cold when my wife turns the air conditioning too high. Little problem, right? So they'll know they're going to be scored from low to high based on the intensity of the problem. They're also going to be scored low to high on their solution. So several years ago, on the environment thing, they focused on garbage cleanup at Mary B. Austin School, and I was a judge for their competition. And one of the solutions was we're going to get a garbage pickup submarine, and we're going to put it in the Mobile Bay, and we're going to pick all the garbage up with a claw off the floor of the Mobile Bay, which is an incredibly creative solution. It's an amazing thing for a child to come up with. Not really a very good premise because you can walk across most of the Mobile Bay most of the time. So at this level, that's not going to score very highly on the premise or the solution to the problem. Although it's really innovative, it's not likely to work, and the judges are going to know that, right? So then they'll be on the proof, whatever proof they offer. This is where there's a real difference between people with a business in the conceptual stage and a business that's running, right? Because the proof for a business is running is, well, we sold $40,000 worth last year. That's really hard to argue with. Really hard. I'm sorry, I did my Biden whisper there. I didn't mean to, didn't mean to do that. But it's really hard to argue with sales. Sales are hard to argue. The next thing is, well, we asked people to buy it and they said they would buy it. That's kind of the next best argument, right? We put up a sales page, and when they clicked on it, instead of giving them the opportunity to buy, we gave them the opportunity to put their email in, and we tell them when it was available. That's good, but not as good as people bought it. And the next thing is, my mom said she would buy it, right? That's not really great at all. But each of these items, why am I important? I would give on a 1 to 10, I would give my answer for a mobile dog grooming business a 6, maybe. Better than average, but not really great. A 1 would be, well, I've got a driver's license, right? And a 10 would be, well, I have dinner every week with the president of the Animal Rescue Fund and the PCA and PETA, right? They're all in my speed dial list. That's kind of a 10. And then there's a 1, and there's somewhere in the middle. And so the students, when they're designing their pitch and when you're helping them move from the first draft that they're going to create here to their final draft, you can encourage them on each of these points to move up in those points, right? even if the pain doesn't change, like if we're doing the ocean, there's garbage in the ocean, and that's bad. It's a really serious problem, but animals are dying because of garbage in the ocean, and it's affecting the world food supply. And humanity might cease to exist if we don't clean this up. That's 10, right? That's 11 out of 10. And so that's how they move up on this, and we will help them to understand that, and then you all in your classes will help them understand it as well. Profit. Not necessarily more money makes you move up on that, but a more believable story makes you move up on that. My numbers that I just sort of made up, probably, but if I had hard data, like I followed around, is it Wags and Whiskers? I don't know, Yeah, I followed Wags and Whiskers around for a day, and they made 27 stops. And I know because I talked to one of the people after they left, they make $100 on each one. So if we just do what they did, we'll make this much money. That's a far more compelling profit story. And then the ask needs to be reasonable, and fit with what you're trying to do. And so if you match all of those things together, that's how they sort of move up in the ladder. So they'll know all of that, and then they get to write their pitch and practice it with each other in class. So they do the first one, and then they bounce it off each other, and then they get a better version. Now I'll give you the part of this that is good advice that they probably won't take. There's a section in here. It's a second numbered section in this, and it's got 4 sort of main points in it. And the first one is put everything in the right order. We usually don't have a huge problem with that. The second thing is the information should be believable. We do have a problem about that. People don't want to do the research to get the numbers right or get the numbers to where they're at least believable. And if you help them do that, they'll perform better. The third one is they should practice a lot. And I realize that the prize is not huge for this particular contest, but if they're really going to start a business, they should practice a lot. The short version is you write out in this class what it's going to be. Then you say it over and over again until you're used to saying it. And then after you get to the point where you're just saying it, you will have changed words that are on the paper. So you just record it. Then you transcribe the recording. That's when you memorize it. And then you just keep doing it. It'll get boring. You want it to get boring, because once it gets boring, once you know the content, then you can start to pay attention to all of the other stuff you're doing. You know, I've given this presentation so many times, I'm holding this as a crutch, but I don't need to look at it for this part because I've said it 1,000 times. And so I can pay attention to what I'm doing with my hand, to the spacing between words. We're using a program here called PitchVantage, and in order to score highly on it, you have to vary the speed and pace and tonality when you speak. And the reason is that's what people like to hear. If you can't remember what you're going to say, if all of your mental effort is trying to remember what the next sentence is, you can't pay attention to your tonality. You can't pay attention to the speed. You can't pay attention to making eye contact. You can't pay attention to your facial expressions. But once you've got it memorized, all of that stuff comes into play, and that puts you at a whole other level of being able to present. And so I always tell my students this, and some of them actually take it to heart, and it works out really well. And then once you get done, time it again, then do it in front of other people, because your presentation speed changes when you're in front of other people. It almost always gets faster, or in some cases it gets slower. Most people, it gets faster because they're nervous. Some people slow down because they start to stutter and stammer and they can't get everything out. But if they've memorized, if they've gone through this program and they've memorized it, not this program, but the program of getting their presentation in order, they won't have that problem, and they'll find out their 2-minute presentation takes 1:15. And if they had a 1-minute presentation, that means they're through in about 35 seconds and they didn't have enough in their presentation. So they practice it, and then, you know, if you're the kind of person who speeds up, you aim your presentation for 1:45. Then, even if you slow down by almost, or if you speed up by almost half, you're still at 1 minute long, and it works out just great. So we'll present that. You have that in your guides to take home, and that's sort of the second part of it. And then, you know, that's the end of our program. When they get through with this, they've gone from walking in with, this is a pitch thing, I'm not really sure what's going on. They've gone from that to now they have a product or service to pitch. They know how they're going to market it to the public. They know how they're going to market it, which a pitch is marketing. They know how they're going to market it to investors. So they've gone from having nothing to having a package that they're ready to go with, and then they can go out and they can see if it works. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter, because they have the ideas in the package, and they can come up with the next idea and the next idea and the next idea and the next idea, and eventually they'll find one that works.